Hi, I am Dr. Seyed Amir Jazaeri from University of Malaya, Center of Addiction Sciences, Malaysia. In these videos, I'm going to talk about research methodology. The objectives of these videos are how to prepare a research proposal, how to determine a size of a sample, what makes a good proposal, how to write a good research article, writing and publishing a research article, and finally, research report preparation and presentation. In this first video, I'm going to talk about the following objectives: inductive and deductive research questions, quantitative and qualitative research, and independent and dependent variables. A research proposal is the presentation of an idea that you wish to pursue. A good research proposal presumes that you have already thought about your project and have devoted some time and effort in gathering information, reading, and then organizing your thoughts. A research proposal is not a project to be thrown together in one night with ideas off the top of your head. Thus, one might say that the research proposal is a second step following the selection of a broad topic. The actual proposal will indicate what analytical question you wish to address. The foundation of a good research paper is a good research question. Just a tree needs a good root system to grow to be strong. A good research paper needs a good analytical question. Therefore, let's take a look to this graph. A cycle of research. A research begins by choosing a topic. The second step would be designing study, plan, and strategy. Third step is collecting of the data, and after that, analyzing the data. After analyzing the data, interpretation of data comes, and finally, making a research report to inform other researchers and other colleagues is the last chain of research. All these stages are based on the theory which we have in our proposal. You must consider carefully the verbs you use in your research question. If you are going to explore something, then you need initial description. If you are going to describe something, you need detailed account. If you are going to explain something, you must establish the factors responsible for that event or object. If you are going to understand something, you must establish reasons. If you are going to predict something, you must use an explanation to postulate future outcomes. If you are going to change something, you must actively intervene. And if you want to evaluate something, you must assess if desired outcomes are achieved. As I mentioned earlier, we have two types of research questions: inductive research questions and deductive research questions. Induction is a form of reasoning from bottom to up. The observation or measures is the first step. Second step is identifying patterns, and after that, tentative hypothesis or proposition, and finally we come to the theory. In deduction, it is opposite. We begin with the theory. Then we come to hypothesis to test. Third step is observations to address the hypothesis, test the hypothesis with specific data, and finally, we will be able to confirm or disconfirm the original hypothesis. Quantitative research and qualitative research are the most common form of research. Quantitative researchers attempt to be objective. meaning that they wish to develop an understanding of the world as it is out there, a part of their personal biases, values, and idiosyncratic notions. Quantitative research involves numbers, usually large volume of participants and records. Its strength is representativity, and its weakness is lack of depth of understanding. Only measurable data are being gathered and analyzed in this type of research. On the other hand, qualitative researchers view themselves as primary instrument for collecting data. They rely partly or entirely on their feelings, impressions, and judgments in collecting data. Qualitative research involves words and usually smaller volume of participants or records. Its strength is depth of understanding, and its limitation is representativity. Here is more detailed point-by-point comparison between the two types of research. The first is goal or aim of the research. The primary aim of qualitative research is to provide a complete detailed description of the research topic. Quantitative research, on the other hand, focuses more in counting and classifying features and constructing statistical models and figures to explain what is observed. Second difference is usage. Qualitative research is ideal for earlier phases of research projects, while for the later part of the research project, quantitative research is highly recommended. Quantitative research provides the researcher a clearer picture of what to expect in his research compared to qualitative research. The third difference is data gathering instrument. The researcher serves as the primary data gathering instrument in qualitative research. Here, the researcher employs various data gathering strategies depending upon the thrust or approach of his research. Examples of data gathering strategies used in qualitative research are individual in-depth interviews, structured and non-structured interviews, focus groups, content or documentary analysis, participant observations, and archival research. On the other hand, quantitative research makes use of tools such as questionnaires, surveys, and other equipment to collect numerical or measurable data. The type of data is another difference between quantitative and qualitative research. The presentation of data in a qualitative research is in the form of words and images or objects. If you are conducting a qualitative research, what will most likely appear in your discussion are figures in the form of graphs. However, if you are conducting a quantitative research, what will most likely appear in your discussion are tables containing data in the form of numbers and statistics. And finally, the last differences between quantitative and qualitative research is the approach. Qualitative research is primarily subjective in approach, as it seeks to understand human behavior and reasons that govern such behavior. Researchers have the tendency to become subjectively immersed in the subject matter in this type of research method. In quantitative research, researchers tend to remain objectively separated from the subject matter. This is because quantitative research is objective in approach in the sense that it only seeks precise measurements and analysis of targets, concepts to answer his inquiry. Now the question is, how to determine which method should be used? Debates have been ongoing, tackling which method is better than the other. The reason why this remains unresolved until now is that each has its own strengths and weaknesses, which actually vary depending upon the topic the researcher wants to discuss. This then leads us to the question, which method should be used? The goals of each of the two methods have already been discussed earlier. Therefore, if your study aims to find out the answer to an inquiry through numerical evidence, then you should make use of the quantitative research. However, if your study you wish to explain further why this particular event happened or why this particular phenomenon is the case, then you should make use of qualitative research. Some studies make use of both quantitative and qualitative research. Letting the two complement each other. If your study aims to find out, for example, what the dominant human behavior is towards a particular object or event, and at the same time aims to examine why this is the case, it is then ideal to make use of both models. Now let's talk briefly about independent variables and dependent variables. But first, what is a variable? Variable is simply something that varies. Specifically, variables represent persons or objects that can be manipulated, controlled, or merely measured for the sake of research. Variation means how much a variable varies. Those with little variation are called constants. Independent variables are ones that are more or less controlled. Scientists and researchers manipulated these variables as they see fit. They still vary, but the variation is relatively known or taken into account. Often there are many in a given study. Dependent variables are not controlled or manipulated in any way, but instead are simply measured or registered. These vary in relation to the independent variables, and while results can be predicted, the data is always measured. There can be any number of dependent variables, but usually there is one to isolate reason for variation. Here you can see briefly about the differences between independent and dependent variables. Independent variables are intentionally manipulated, controlled, vary at known rate, and cause. On the other hand, dependent variables are intentionally left alone, measured, vary at unknown rate, and effect. The dependent variable is placed on the y-axis, while the independent variable is placed on the x-axis. Thank you.